Afternoon to all the viewers. I am Dr. Rajesh Singh from Parul Institute of Law, Parul University. I warm welcome Senior Advocate Abdul Suman sir on this virtual platform from the Parul Institute of Law, Parul University, sir. So the topic of this webinar is the drafting and this is a series of the drafting and pleading, and sir is going to elaborate pertaining to the drafting on the civil matters. So first of all, let us introduce about sir, Brijesh sir, Jiten sir. I am presenting one screen right now. So pertaining to a short profile of Abdul sir. Abdul sir, first of all, he has practiced as an advocate since 1989 at various district sessions and other courts within the state of Gujarat and outside Gujarat also. Have gained a rich experience and exposure at various corporate laws with specific reference to the civil and district code, and having gained a rich experience of various litigation under the various civil laws. Also had an opportunity to participate in the civil and quasi-criminal proceeding, arbitration proceeding, RTI proceeding, National Consumer Forum, Delhi. Have also gained wide experience in the field of intellectual property laws involving complicated issue related to the foreign patents and also the trademark copyrights matter of the companies. Have appeared in various litigation under IPRS in the various courts of all over India. Have also participated in the domestic inquiries and large-scale arbitration proceeding involving the large-scale contracts, projects, etc., and have handled large-scale legal assignments involving the close coordination between in-house legal management, courts and the office of the implementation of the strategy in the legal matters. Have been extensively practicing in the civil and corporate laws in general and handling the matter in the civil and district court at all stages all throughout. Have been rendering the professional services to various large-scale, medium-scale industries, multinational and national companies of various nature and retainers and otherwise for last 21 years. So on this platform, I warm welcome to Abdul sir. Sir, in this webinar, we have also Dr. Kalpesh Gupta, who is Associate Professor at this university. So we both are coordinating this event right now. Sir, we warm welcome to this Parul University. Sir, this Parul University has been launched before 4 years back, and we have various courses at our university, say for example, BA LLB, BCom LLB and BBA LLB. And sir, we have right now 6 specialization course in master degree in the law, and we have right now 26 PhD student at our university, sir. So on this platform, I warm welcome senior advocate and the renowned advocate of Vadodara, Abdul Suman sir, on this platform. Now I will say Kalpesh Kumar Gupta to say a few words about our university, and then the session will be handed to you, sir. Kalpesh ji. Kalpesh.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
ये मैं सिर के ऊपर बैठे वो देखो my eyes.
Yes.
Yes, just elaborate about our university, few lines, and then we will start.
Okay, thank you very much. Warm welcome to Abdul sir. I'm Dr. Kalpesh Kumar Gupta. I'm a faculty at Parul Institute of Law. So, sir, we are having around 35 departments and having around 28,000 plus students. And like Parul Institute of Law started in 2016. Our batch will be passing this year. So we are running different courses like integrated courses like BA LLB, BCom LLB, and BA LLB, and the 3-year course also is there. And plus, in addition to this, we are also running LLM in 6 specialization. And MPhil and PhD courses also. And recently, in last 3 months, we also launched different online courses on like PG diploma and certificate courses along with other courses. And recently, we are also planning many other courses like it will short term, like 1 to 2 month courses for all the community, the legal and fraternity and others people who are interested in different domain of law. They want to enhance the particular law. So recently, like. For faculty, I'm also taking one of the class in the drafting presently. So my students like from 3 year and also from 5 year will be also benefiting for your today's session on the drafting on this particular matter. So I again welcome you on behalf of Paro Institute of Law, Paro University Vadodara for this webinar. Thank you very much. Sir. Over to you, Raj.
Sir, thank you very much, Kalpesh sir. Now I am handing this session to renowned advocate of Vadodara, Mr. Abdul Suman sir. Sir, now handing this session to you, sir. Abdul sir.
Namaste. Namaste to all. And, to begin with the session, the subject as it is given, the drafting of pleading, and to introduce the subject, I must very specifically make a statement that pleadings in the civil court, or for that matter, the pleading for any civil legal rights, civil laws, you must remember that your pleading is going to be your face. Your pleading is going to be your identity. Your pleading is going to be the hands working for you in the course of justice. The judge can know about your matter through pleadings. So I have a very clear and a very specific message that this entire session which I am going to handle with you, please remember, pleading is the first and the foundational step. I repeat, it is the first and the foundational step to see that the matter is moving ahead properly. So take care that when the pleadings are being drafted, friends, the pleadings are therefore required to be very precise. And though I am going to discuss with you some of the important principles of provisions as laid down in CPC and some of the judgments in the High Court and Supreme Court, I must tell you, there are certain processes which you require to do for the purpose of preparing a very good pleading. See, the word pleading presupposes you are making a statement of facts. The first and the foremost quality which any good draftsman who wants to draft the good pleading, he should exclusively focus on the facts first. So practical suggestion I'm giving to you, if you are a lawman, you are a lawyer, you are required to draft some pleading, either plaint or petition or any proceeding which you want to initiate, the first requirement which you should do is ask the client every detailed facts with all minute particulars. I am proposing this, that though it is ultimately not written in CPC, this is the suggestion which I will give you when the client comes to you. I believe that nowadays in the universities, there is a client counseling competition. So what is the client counseling is nothing but the client may have the plethora of facts. The client may have the bunch of facts. You need to consult yourself with the client by keeping in view the law integrated with the facts. I'll give a very simple example, Why I give the example so that you can understand that what is the value and worth of the pleading. For example, I'll give an example of say a cruelty in the marriage. Now, therefore, a person comes and tells you that, sir, my wife was very cruel with me. So you ask that what are the incidences. For example, suppose if I'm a person who has some belief system and the belief system requires me to do certain things. I tell my wife that, please make the preparations for this puja. And she says, ki ye theek hai, ye jo kachra patti kaam karna ab mere ko bolte, I'll do that. So this word, I have some belief system. I tell my wife, do it. And she uses a bad word for my practices in my life. It is a mental cruelty. Now the client will tell you what is the incident. But you will have to find out the process to identify the relationship between the facts and the law. Another example, somebody comes to you and tells you to draft the plaint for the recovery of money suit. Now when that comes, naturally the question will come how the money has fallen due. The client will tell that, sir, in the month of January, the opponent had sent an email to me and told that I have already verified the quality and standard of your product because I have used it earlier from the open market. But now I want to purchase it to you. I want to purchase it directly from you. As I have seen your quality standards are good, why should I be dependent upon the retail market? Now this is an incident of a contract. Take a pause and I draw your attention. There is a fusion between the substantial law and the procedural law. I am today discussing the requirement of the procedural law, but please don't lose your connectivity. I am trying to impress upon you the importance of collecting, collating, integrating the facts with law. Section 1 of the Contract Act says every incident of a contract is capable to create the binding relationship to regulate and govern the contractual privity. Now, incident number one, client comes and tells you that, sir, I want to file a suit for the recovery, but this suit is required to be filed against person who had written me an email in the month of January 2020, and the email said, I have already used your goods and I am very happy with the quality and standard of your specification. I would like to purchase it directly from you. Now, this email prior to the invoice, which is being not paid, defaulted, requiring you to file a suit, that has a history of some email written by the client. Now, if you are able to have the conscious connectivity, your pleading will include that the plaintiff herein is the manufacturer, defendant herein is also manufacturer of this product, in need of the product manufactured by the plaintiff. And the history of this particular contractual relationship starts with an email in the month of January 2020, followed with his visit in Vadodara, inspection being given, and then he placing the purchase order. These four major incidents in the contract: the pre-contract email, post-contract, before contract a personal visit to Baroda, inspection of the goods. These are the things which are controlling so many things. Your strongest cause, that recovery of money on the basis of the invoices for the goods sold in respect whereof the quality, standard, specification, including his visit to Vadodara, will help you to confer the jurisdiction on Vadodara. Now take a pause and ask a question. How opponent defendant's visit to Baroda has an importance in the pleading? The answer lies in section 15 to 17 and 70 to 21 of the CPC, which says where the cause of action is arisen. Now, cause of action will arise when the person has visited you, met you. I'm just trying to make you aware that whenever you want to prepare the pleading, you should have complete comprehensive control on the entire set of facts. And when I say entire set of facts, friends, it is every incident related to your right and cause. I repeat, right in law and the cause of action. Cause of action is one of the most important element in the plaint, that is the civil proceeding which you initiate by for the purpose of filing the suit. So therefore, order 7, rule 1 says what it should contain, what the plaint should contain. If you look order 6 very specifically, it says the pleading shall state the material facts and not evidence. So meaning thereby the rule is there. The pleading should state the material fact. Now what is material? Is most material for you to understand. Every fact is material, capable to constitute the cogent relationship between your right to recover money and the law applicable to that. So when you want to file a suit for the recovery of money, it is controlled by Contract Act, it is controlled by Sale of Goods Act, it is also controlled simultaneously by the provisions as contained in CPC. How do you write? So if I have to conclude my prelude, how to write a plaint, I'll put it in one line, quoting my most revered senior Shri Rohit Bhai Majmudar. He used to say, Suman, draft the plaint like a story. I know, you will find that, sir, are we here to learn the literature? I said, yes, the literature and law has a common thing, and that is the language is a mother, either for literature or for law. So my senior used to tell me and quote me that when you draft the plaint, draft it so properly, draft it so structurally sound, so the reader will be led to reach to the ultimate destination, what you want in the relief or the prayer clause. So when I start telling you the story, friends, every sentence in the story is capable to invoke the interest and connectivity. It will invoke the reader to read further parts. So if you start writing plaint which is very boring, which doesn't have a very nice fabric, there is a common feature between the sculptor and the pleader. When you plead something, your sculpture, the structure should be very attractive. It should appeal to the person who is going to read it. Who is that? The judge. And the judge is the most important element in the entire adjudication system. If you are able to appeal to the judge with the help of your language, then that is what I said. Language is the mother of law. What exactly you want to plead, you must be very clear. For example, if in the example I have given you, Sale of Goods Act, if there is some accusation belated from the defendant that your goods were not good, you can always plead in para 1 that the plaintiff herein is the manufacturer being awarded with the award of star manufacturer by Federation of Industries, Commerce and vagera in Gujarat. Now, how my award and industrial recognition will have an impact in the adjudication? The judge will see that the plaintiff is the industry being awarded with the awards, the best manufacturing qualitative industry award. So these are the things, whether what is required, I cannot give you the examples to ensure that ultimately you will have to find out what is essential, what is not essential, and how you are able to bring a wonderful fabric, as I told you, the wonderful fabric which should have the magnetic impact in the mind of a reader. I repeat, the mind of a reader, namely the judge. When he reads, he should be able to get himself magnetically attracted to reach each paragraph one after another. If you are not able to have the kind of a structure I am proposing, believe me, your plaint may not be a good plaint, not because it is defective for content, it is not effective for the purpose of person. It should be like a wonderful story when you write para 1, para 2, para 3, para 4, and when finally the infraction of rights, you should be able to write it very clearly. So order 6 I referred to, the pleading should state the material fact. What is material fact? As I have told you, is a source which you should get it from the client, have exhaustive meeting, exhaustive sitting, take 100 pages note, jot down, and when he gives the fact, at that time you may not be able to read the law. When he serves the fact, you can correlate that this is the fact, correlated or supported by some provision or principle of a law that will add the strength and energy to your pleading. Then comes another important principle which is provided as to the essential features of pleading which are listed in order 6. I may not be able to read the whole order while requesting you to please go through the headings of essential ingredients of the plaint. But I must tell you very interesting element of order 6, in particular order 6 rule 9 and order 6, which is also at order 6 rule 9 and order 7 rule. Yes, order 6 rule 9 and order 7 rule 1E. Why? Because now I am moving on to another layer, that when the pleadings are required to be drafted in a particular manner as prescribed by two provisions of CPC, order 6 and rule 7, as we are all aware, the pleadings are procedural part. So therefore, when the pleadings are defective, the provisions can be catastrophic. And I must draw your attention that order 6 rule 9 says effect of document to be stated. So whenever you are relying on some document, believe me, mere production of document along with the plaint is not going to serve the purpose, my friends. You must very specifically plead what is the effect of this particular document. And it also needs an integral backward correlation with order 6 rule 4. If you read order 6 rule 4, it says in all cases in which the party pleading relies on any misrepresentation, fraud, breach of trust, willful default, undue influence, then it should be stated with the dates and items. So whenever there are any material facts such as breach, willful breach, default, which I believe is fundamental to any civil pleading. Unless there is no default, there will not be any litigation. I'm sorry, unless there is no default, there is no dispute. And if there is no dispute, there is no litigation. So the default in the relationship, any relationship, it may be contractual, it may be confidential, it may be personal, it may be in relation to any misuse of IPR, anything can be there. So whenever you want to put the material particulars, the default in particular, because believe me, default is the fountain source which gives rise to the cause of action for filing a suit. So order 6 rule 4, order 6 rule 9, and as I have told you, the catastrophic effect, which I will request you to please read in conjoint manner, order 7 rule 1 sub rule E, read with order 7 rule 11 sub rule A. Why? Because you will be surprised to believe in the plaint if you don't write the cause of action. Now what is cause of action? The cause of action is a bunch of facts capable to confirm that your some right in law is being violated, is being infringed, is being breached upon by the defendant. So that is the bunch of facts. So whenever the bunch of facts are required to be pleaded, they should essentially be bounded by some provision of law. So when you write a cause of action in the ordinary suit for recovery of money, you should write the cause of action as a reason, primarily when the defendant wrote an email inquiring that your products are being used by me, and now I am very happy, therefore I would like to purchase it directly from you instead of retail market, the cause of action is related to that email. It continues also when the defendant visited Vadodara, also when he purchased the goods, also when the invoices were raised, also when the invoices were delivered to him, also when he wrote an email that on account of some situation, the period of payment shall be 15 days from today. All the incidences will have to be mentioned. So the word cause of action is provided in Order 7, Rule 11, Order 7, Rule 1, Subrule E, which says the plaint shall contain, because of the paucity of time and of course the boundary of the limitation of subject, I will recommend to you, please read Order 7, Rule 11, Subrule A to I. They are capable to show the names and identity of the limbs and the parts of plaint, what it should contain. Look, the word of the legislative language is the plaint shall contain, meaning thereby it has to mandatorily contain the following things. If the contents of the plaint are not in conformity with the provisions as prescribed, and then of course Order 7, Rule 2, Rule 3, they have been given different topics. In case of a money suit, what should be pleaded? In case of a suit related to immovable property, what you should mention? Just to give a reference, Order 7, Rule 2 relates suit related to immovable property. What is required is you have to give the survey numbers, you have to give the revenue identity number, and please believe me, you are also required to give the boundaries of the property. So meaning thereby, when the property will be finally adjudicated, the judge must know what the property is. So there are different types of suits being given. Number 2 is money suit. Rule 2 is money suit. Rule 3 is immovable property. Then the suit when it is filed in the representative capacity. I will also point out very quickly what is representative capacity, because I believe how to draft the plaint for the public interest litigation is also nowadays important, because the private rights can be effectively protected. When the public interest comes, then also you should be careful. I'll deal with that in few seconds, but before I switch on, I must point out to you that any deficiency in the pleading can be catastrophic and destructive, friends. Plaint kaise likhna? How? Believe me, in law there are two things: what and how. What is a substance? Offer, acceptance, consideration, contract. That is the substance. I have created a new trademark, the Satyavidhi. I have adopted it, registered under Trademarks Act. I am the owner of the property. So that is how. So that is what. So either it is Trademarks Act, Transfer of Property Act, Contract Act, Sale of Goods Act. These are all laws related to the substantial part of the law. But how is a procedural part. And as I have told, though Supreme Court has ruled so many times that procedural law is a handmade tool, you should use it to enhance or advance the cause of justice. But at the same time, procedural law is also capable to give catastrophic effect if there is a careless, casual mistakes you commit. And believe me, then I hold only our wonderful profession, namely the legal profession, responsible for these kind of judicial accidents. I call a judicial accident. Motor accident hota hai, it's a judicial accident. You know what happened? A client came to me and client said, "Sir, plaint likhni hai." I said, "Okay, chalo likhte hai plaint." And I drafted the plaint without bothering to read the contents of law. What are the essential ingredients listed in Order 7, Rule 1? Believe me, Order 7, Rule 1 prescribes a list of the matters which should essentially be included. So when you draft the plaint, if you don't take care, the consequence is provided in Order 7, Rule 11A. Kabhi pad lijiye. If you find time, Googleshwar Mahadev is very kind. You press the button, you can read Order 7, Rule 11A. It says, if the plaint fails to disclose the cause of action, the plaint can be rejected. And I will make the material difference between rejection of plaint and rejection of suit. Rejection of plaint means you filed the plaint and the judge examines and finds that the cause of action is not pleaded in compliance with Order 7, Rule 1, Subrule E. The judge will abort the plaint. And I know the word abortion is painful. Abortion is you don't allow that child creature to grow. Otherwise, the suit will be continued, evidence will be collected, final hearing will be given, and then court will decide the matter on merits. But the catastrophic effect is, if your pleading is defective, meaning thereby one of the defect I have pointed out, there are many other, but as I told you, for a paucity of time, it is not possible to point out. I'm just trying to bring out a very strong principle that if you don't frame your plaint properly, Order 7 Rule 11A says it can be aborted, it can be rejected. So before the creature of the suit moves on, it can be struck off by the court. That is the effect. And believe me, Order 7 Rule 11 say the judge can do it at any point of time if he finds that your plaint is defective and deficient. I'm just trying to point out that certain issues which are required to be very specifically taken care in the pleading. The pleading, when I use the word, it requires you to have a reference to Order 6 in particular, because the provisions of Order 6 Rule 1 says pleading shall mean plaint and written statement. The word plaint means the pleading of the plaintiff, and the word written statement means the pleading of the defendant. So when you are a plaintiff, you want to file a suit, you are supposed to draw the plaint. And when you are a defendant, you are supposed to draw and draft the written statement. Now, as I discussed with you at length, the contents and essential ingredients of plaint provided for by Order 6 and Rule 7, I must also bring it to your notice that an interesting provision comes in Order 8, which deals with written statement, set off or counter.